Welcome to this introductory video on the Bridge Guidelines for Good Epidemiological Practice. The aim of this video is to provide an operational overview of the Bridge Guidelines that were published in 2020 in the PMJ Global Health. By watching this video, you will be able to position the Bridge Guidelines within the landscape of research fairness and research integrity, describe the main components of the Bridge Guidelines and the methodology used for their development, explain how the Bridge Guidelines can improve the local impact of epidemiological studies. To position the Bridge Guidelines, I want to start with an anecdote that comes directly from Bridge co-author Dr. Susan Ramisha. Early on in her career, Susan visited communities in rural parts of her home country, Tanzania, to prepare a study on malaria. As is the custom and the norm, she spoke to village leaders to inform them about her study. The village leaders listened carefully and then politely replied, "We don't have mosquito problems here. Rather, our village is infested with rats." The message was loud and clear. Help us with our rat problem, and we will help you with your mosquito problem. This interaction is very emblematic of knowledge production in global health and touches upon a number of themes from the Bridge Guidelines. What makes a good study? Who decides what is worth studying? Whom do we conduct research for? To answer these questions, we need to take a step back and consider two movements that gained momentum in the past decade and have direct implications for global health epidemiology. Research integrity has emerged as a response to the reproducibility crisis that has shaken the foundations of most scientific disciplines. Within epidemiological research, ill-designed, badly implemented, inappropriately analyzed, or selectively reported studies will lead to irreproducible results, casting doubts on the validity of the studies. Some people refer to this as research waste. Various guidelines aim to improve research integrity in epidemiology and more generally in science. Research fairness, on the other hand, aims to address the power imbalances in global health. The idea is to maximize the positive impact of research, both on local researchers and local communities. The goals of research fairness are broadly aligned with efforts to decolonize global health. Here, too, there are a number of codes of conduct to ensure fair and equitable research. Now, research integrity and research fairness principles should be equally nurtured to produce high-quality, impactful research, but bridging the two can lead to practical and ethical dilemmas. In order to provide practical guidance to researchers and epidemiologists, we developed guidelines specifically for global health epidemiology, targeted at stakeholders involved in the commissioning, conduct, appraisal, and publication of global health research. The Bridge Guidelines were developed through a structured consultative process known as the Delphi methodology. We involved approximately 40 stakeholders of global health epidemiology representing various countries across the globe and various types of institutions. Slightly more than half of the participants were based in Europe or North America, but we also had participants from South America, Africa, Asia, and Australia. Most participants were researchers working in universities, but some also represented funding organizations, national public health institutes, or NGOs. The resulting Bridge Guidelines consist of 6 standards and 42 criteria, covering all stages in the conduct of an epidemiological study: study preparation, protocol development, data collection, data management, data analysis, and finally, communication and dissemination. For example, this is the 3rd standard about data collection. It comprises of 7 criteria. The idea is that if your study meets all the criteria, the study will automatically fulfill the whole standard. In other words, you will be able to say that your study used valid and reliable instruments and reproducible methods while ensuring culturally appropriate procedures. To give you an operational flavor of the guidelines, let me take you through 3 real-life scenarios. The first pertains to data collection, the second is related to multidisciplinary research, and the third concerns dissemination of research. Let's start with data collection. Imagine you have been collecting data with an electronic data collection tool for a quantitative survey. Data collection has been going on for months, and you're finally about to download the data to start your analyses. But just as you start tabulating the data, you realize that a key categorical variable that is supposed to only have values 1 for yes and 2 to no, and 9 for don't know, actually has many more values. It might take a lot of time to find out what happened, and part of the data may be useless. How could have this been prevented? This is where the Bridge Standard 3 and accompanying criteria on data collection come in, with the recommendation to pilot test your research instruments prior to the start of effective data collection. While every epidemiologist is aware of the need to test instruments, in practice, time and monetary constraints mean this is not always done properly, if at all. The Bridge guidelines explicitly mention the need to do this in one of the criteria in data collection. The aim is to remind researchers to do so, but also to provide leverage towards funders and users of research. Indeed, funders and users need to create enough space for this task and not request results within unreasonable delays. Now let's consider scenario 2, related to multidisciplinary research. Multidisciplinary studies are very common in global health, as they can help to improve the understanding of issues at hand, providing a comprehensive picture. Often, multidisciplinary studies try to combine qualitative methods, for example anthropology, and quantitative methods, for example epidemiology. Typically, quantitative methods can tell you if there is an association or change, but qualitative methods will tell you why. If you manage to make the right connections between quantitative and qualitative evidence, you can get entirely new insight into the problem you're studying. It's the closest thing you can get to magic as a global health researcher. But often, despite the best intentions, the two types of analyses remain separate, and it is difficult to make one coherent story out of it, especially when the two disciplines are rooted in very different research traditions and epistemologies. Here too, the Bridge guidelines can offer some support. Standard 2 on study preparation invites researchers to think carefully at the outset of the study how the different disciplines will fit together. Once this is clear, strategies need to be developed to integrate these different methods. One simple strategy is to organize regular meetings between different study members at key moments in the study conduct to make connections between the various findings and issues as they emerge. Disseminating results and ensuring that the right people are aware of your study is key to achieve research impact. This is why often researchers organize dissemination events to share their new insights with key stakeholders. Depending on the context, key stakeholders may include policymakers, health managers, or affected communities. Yet sometimes, these dissemination events do not reach their goals, either because the key stakeholders do not attend, or, even worse, sometimes stakeholders do come to the dissemination events, but are presented information that is not relevant to them. As a result, dissemination can turn into a one-way conversation where the researchers are essentially just speaking to themselves. Here again, the Bridge guidelines aim to provide support. One of the reasons many global health studies do not translate into action is because key stakeholders are not engaged early enough in the study. Each country will have its own systems in place and very specific knowledge gaps. You need to know about this early on in the study to ensure that the study provides useful and relevant results. The Bridge Guidelines nudge researchers in that direction by encouraging engagement of key stakeholders early on in the study. This may include policymakers, health managers, or affected communities. In short, the Bridge Guidelines aim to support researchers all throughout the research process to ensure that they conduct high-quality studies with impact where it matters the most, in the local communities and research systems. So if you're conducting a malaria study, the Bridge Guidelines will help you conduct a good malaria study. But hopefully the Bridge Guidelines will also help you reflect and question the very need for your study. For more information about the Bridge Guidelines, please consult the Bridge Statement website.